Let's focus on your congressional race against Nancy Pelosi. Now, you have run against her several times before, and you've lost by a significant margin every single time. So why do you think this time could be different for you?
Well, and done better every time. I know it's within, within a certain margin. We've done better every time we've run as a percentage. But Nancy Pelosi's in an unusual position. I'm sorry to divulge her age, but she happens to share my daughter's birthday, so I happen to know that she's approaching her 80th birthday in a month and a half or so. It appears that her judgment is slipping, and this impeachment business has been terribly embarrassing for her. So she's losing on the national stage. I don't know if you've heard the stories, but San Francisco, the quality of life here has dropped dramatically. We have a terrible homeless problem, terrible for not just the homeless people, but also for the people who live in San Francisco. And UN reports have come in and said that San Francisco in certain neighborhoods resembles third world countries. So she's failing her district. She's failing on the national level. People in San Francisco are beginning to talk about this. They're unhappy with her. And perhaps this is the time that we can actually send her into retirement for good.
All right, well, help us understand just how significant the deterioration has been. You mentioned pollution, you mentioned homelessness, you mentioned crime. To what extent has the district deteriorated over the past 10 years or so?
We have the worst property crime in America. People break into cars. They are not prosecuted for those crimes. We give away about 6 million hypodermic needles every year, of which about 20% are returned. So that means we have north of 5 million, around 5 million needles that end up on our streets and in our sewers, and used hypodermic needles. They're not hard to find. Come to San Francisco. I'm sorry to say, you'll see them. You'll see them in many places, particularly where you find homelessness. Streets are filthy. You've never seen anything like it. I mean, I've had the good fortune of living around.
So what would you plan to do about that? What would you do differently? How would you tackle this, John?
Great question. All requests for federal grants have to go through the local congressman or congresswoman, as it were. And, San Francisco gets $45 million just for homelessness. They get about $500 million a year from the federal government. And Nancy Pelosi has just simply rubber stamped that aid. I'd like to reward success. I don't want to reward failure. And so I'm going to actually hold on tighter to those requests and those grants for San Francisco until the local city management shows that they can actually resolve some of these problems. We don't have really have a problem with homelessness. We have a problem with the city's inability to deal with homelessness. And as the member of the House who brings money into the city, I'm going to use that leverage to make them perform.
Well, Pelosi is running against several Democratic challenges as well, including Shahid Buttar, and they're pushing for more extreme left positions like Medicare for All, the Green New Deal. Those are two things that he's backing, and he seems to be gaining some traction on the Democratic side. Given that this is the current, do you see Pelosi being pulled further to the left should she get reelected?
Absolutely. You put your finger right on it, Michelle. This election is so symbolically important, not just for San Francisco, but I'm sorry to, this is not hyperbole, I think for America, because San Francisco has been a social science experiment for the left, for the progressives. And as we've moved farther to the left, the city has deteriorated. So now San Franciscans are going to give Nancy Pelosi the most votes in our top two system. So she will move on to the ballot in November. But they have to make a decision. Do they want to keep pushing farther to the left and get more of what we've come to? Or are they going to sort of come back and take a more moderate position by saying, okay, enough with the Shahid Buttars, enough with the progressive Bernie Sanders socialist types. We need to actually get some person with reasonable solutions in, and then we're going to vote for John Dennis. And I might add, in some of those elections, when we had top twos in 2012 and 2014, I did make it into the top two, and people had the choice in November of Nancy Pelosi and John Dennis. And I'm hoping that happens again.
All right, John, thank you so much. John Dennis.